I'd like to begin the show today by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation people. This territory is also covered by the Williams Treaty of 1923. We gather here in gratitude on Chippewa territory. A treaty is an inheritance, a responsibility, and a relationship. May we be good neighbors to one another, good stewards to our planet, and good ancestors to all our children. And with that, I'd like to welcome to the show Raven and Shoshana from Digging Roots. Thank you guys for coming on the show.
Yeah,
great to be here.
Great.
Yeah.
So you guys are very busy people, lots of touring and lots of performing, probably some of the busiest guys that I've seen in the music business. Your latest album was For the Light.
Yes.
And that was recorded, when did you release that album?
In 2014.
Mm-hmm. 2014. So it sounds like we're about due for another album.
Yeah, we have a new record.
Is it in the works?
Yep. It will be out this year. It's called The Hunter and the Healer.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what can we expect on this new album?
I would say that it's a mix of blues and music that makes you want to move, dance. The issues are polarized with the hunter and the healer. Mm-hmm. I feel that it's, some of the lyrics that are coming out are us looking at what's going on in society right now. We're living in a world of, Trump power, and, there's huge changes going on, and, there's people talking about third world wars, and there's a lot of crazy, but at the same time, there's a lot of connectedness with each other and family and the stronghold that we have back behind us, that's holding us up. And I think, those ideas and concepts are sort of coming into the music and sort of making up the hunter and the healer.
Okay. And you guys write together?
Yeah, we do.
Tell me a little bit about that process of how you guys typically write music.
Well, I think it happens in all sorts of ways. Sometimes inspiration just falls out of the sky and then you're just trying to capture it. And I think sometimes we sit down very purposefully to write a song together and we bring ideas, and I think like any co-writers would. But one of the ways that when we're purposefully writing is this thing called songlines, and it's a traditional songwriting methodology, and it has to do with tracing the contour of the horizon and letting that inform the melodic structure of the song. So it's been kind of exciting and interesting and challenging because all the songs belong to a place, and so it kind of roots it in an idea right from the beginning, but it also, you're sort of finding that inspiration in this very external way and creating structure from these external things. So I think that being the rebels that we are, we really struggled with how to find our inspiration in those structures, and it's been cool.
I'll have to ask you, what's the word for that?
Songlines?
Yes, but the Aboriginal word for that?
I actually don't know. I mean, it's something along the lines of Nagamuan, I think, but it's
a really good question.
Yeah. It was actually a tradition that was sort of hidden for a while because Shoshona's great aunt, who went to residential schools, was the one that told us about it. And she said, this is the way we used to write songs back in the day. But she was also coming from a generation where we were not allowed to sing our songs or speak our language or carry those traditions with us, right? Mm-hmm, so a lot of things went underground for many years, and I mean, really, in some places over 100 years. Mm-hmm. So, a lot of those traditions are coming back now, and I feel like there's a sort of renaissance that's happening musically with Indigenous people, and people are able to sing again, speak their own language again, be who they are, and represent where they come from. And I think this is a tradition that's coming from that place.
And you're quite active in that, right? You're going into reserves and connecting with Aboriginal people all across, and kind of bringing music and trying to introduce that to them.
Yeah, we've always been, I would say.
Yeah, I don't know about introducing, but definitely really engaged in having that dialogue in our communities, and really excited about working with young people and just all of the amazing power and creativity that's there, and wanting to, give to that
Are the youth really embracing this kind of newfound freedom to be able to, rediscover the language and the music and kind of bring the culture back?
No, I think it's much more complicated than that. I think that like youth anywhere, there's all sorts of different ways that people approach their identity and the discovery of the identity at that age, which I think is like a human experience. And I think there are a lot of challenges and really difficult things going on reserves and in urban communities for Indigenous youth. And so I think that they're carrying a heavy weight. There's this weight of history on them, and they have to find a way to make peace with that and find their own voice in all of it. So I think that some youth are, super active and in reclaiming and picking up those things, and some youth are working really hard on just getting by, and because life is complicated and difficult, and sometimes both those things are happening, side by side, probably most of the time. And I think that, there are still issues in such a broad and profound way in terms of access, like I think, like we don't know the word for songlines, and we've been talking about this forever, and it's just...
Well, I think I have, I had it written here, was actually the Anishinaabe.
Oh, yes, Anishinaabe.
Anishinaabe.
But this is the people.
Right.
So,
okay.
That's essentially the word for, like the plural for human beings, I guess.
I see, okay.
So, and Anishinaabe is the language of the people.
Oh, I see, okay.
So we use it to describe our nationhood, but it really essentially means human being in our own language. So,
but I think that with our music, the way that we're using music and maybe the way it's using us is that, we're traveling to different communities, and I look at it as a collaboration, like even if we're working with young people, youth, like I'm always learning from people regardless if they're the student or I'm the student. I kind of feel like I'm a student across the board. So when you're going into situations, we're kind of discovering together. Like we're discovering what life is about, how to communicate, how to explore, how to talk about something, like how to express. And music is like that, it's about expression, and it's, there's a lot of letting go of the ego in the front so that the music can actually come out freely. We've also taken songlines to different parts of the world, like Australia, and hung out with the Indigenous people out there, and shared songlines because they have a similar concept out there.
Oh, they do. Okay.
Yeah. And the same thing with we've been in Norway, hanging with the Sami people, the Indigenous people from there, and they have songlines as well, and they call it yoiking. I was on this mountain one time with this elder, and he was
on the tundra. With a reindeer herder. This was a real thing.
Yeah, like, a couple of thousand of reindeer.
One of the crazy, amazing things that we get to do. We got to be with this elder who is a, elder reindeer herder, which is a central part of their culture. And we didn't have any language so it was all through song and food that we communicated essentially. And so this
food is universal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
As is music.
As is music.
Yeah. So I just started
You
singing.
make friends with anybody.
It's really awesome how that's super true.
Yeah, we were singing the mountains in the background like this, and I was going like way oh, yeah. And then he started doing it too, and pointing and yoiking that melody on how he heard it. And then at one point he goes like. And he pulls out this big knife, and he goes here. I was like, oh, okay. And then he digs in a bag, and he pulls out this big chunk of raw reindeer meat, like steak. And I was like, oh, wow. And he hands it to me, and I'm like, cut off a piece, and I put it right on the fire with the big knife, and we were just chatting and eating and singing.
We're now friends forever.
Yep.
Is it surprising to you that songlines concept seems to be very common no matter where you go?
Well...
Or maybe because I guess it's very earth-based. It's a very earth-based idea.
I felt like I was surprised, but at the same time I was like, oh, of course. you know, because the thing about traveling is that you really can connect to the fact that how the same we are, you know, like obviously there are all of these wonderful differences and things we can learn from each other, and you know, not to say that, you know, everybody's the same, but there are these like really core things in our humanity that are the same, and I find like music is one of those things that touches on that. And so like we were in Mexico City touring, and we met these Chilean people, and when they arrived they did a land acknowledgement in their way, which of course we do here, and it's like we knew what they were doing even though we didn't have any language, and we started sharing songs, and we spent like 4 days with them in downtown Mexico City without speaking the same language, and we had a wonderful time together. And finally, at the end of those 4 days, we got a translator and realized that our families were connected in the most, like my mother had gone and done work with a traditional woman in the mountains in Chile. This was one of their, you know, granddaughters, and she came to visit and stayed in Six Nations and hung out with, and it was just so crazy. And here we are, we found each other
in a city
in
of
downtown
30 million people.
In a city of 30 million people.
yeah, in Mexico City. And
8 hour, 10-hour flight away.
yeah, and of course we were like glue.
Yeah.
You know, and it was just, and I feel like music was the thing that allowed us to find each other. You know? Just magical things like that. But yeah.
Smells of sweet grass, it means I'm almost there. Show me your rhythms, I'll round dance a love song. I'll play it deep now for you, baby. Sing all night long, all night, all night long. When everyone's deeply creeping, I give you my heart. Been playing those on a beat since we've been apart. Spell for your soul, two time got blues for your songs. I play it deep now for you, baby. Sing it all night long, all night, all night long, all night long. Goodbye day, then we'll 49 by 9 until sunrise ceremony breaks that first line. As the sacred fire grows, so will the revolution songs. I play it deep now for you, baby, and sing it all night long, all night, all night long.
a little bit about this big drum that we have that you brought today that kind of forms a very core part of your band.
Yeah, this is a Tewagen drum, and Tewagen just means drum, but we call it a grandfather drum as well. They use them at powwows, and it's a drum of unity, and the men usually play it, although there's new generations where women are playing that drum as well. And essentially, when you're playing, you're sitting around that drum together and everybody has a stick. When you're hitting it at the same time like this. And that creates, this beat where you have to work together in order for it to sound good. And then when you're singing, you all have to sing together as well, and that to make it sound good. So it's sort of a practice of being able to communicate and talk with the drum and with each other in this unified way. And we use it in our music, and we use it to start some things like round dances, where we just get like the entire audience to move around and just dancing, and it gets people out of their chairs, and it's a way for us to meet each other and not feel like strangers. Because when you go to a concert, you're listening to music, you sit down, maybe you're standing up or something and dancing a bit, but then you leave. With a round dance, it kind of forces you to be in this circle, and the circle's turning, and you're, all of a sudden you're meeting other people, and, we do it at festivals, and we get these huge circles going on, and we're playing the drum, and, sometimes we bring people from the audience to come up and try the drum as well.
Oh, you integrate them right into the show.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes we have some dancers, like if there's some local powwow dancers or something, or, Fancy Shawl, or whoever's hanging around, we'll bring them up, and, so it's a part of the music, and it's a part of the culture, and it's a part of who we are and how we express ourselves within Digging Roots.
Well, and I love the idea of moving together, and just like coming from all of these different places and backgrounds, and you're together for this magical moment, and you get to move together for that moment with intention, because it's about something. And I think, so we ask people to find someone they don't know and take them by the hand and join the dance. And people, sometimes people are scared to do that, but I think that's part of it, right? Is overcoming these things that separate us and finding a way to move together. And so I love this as the metaphor of the practice, it's about something.
And that's why people have to go to your shows, so they can see and experience all of this.
Exactly.
Which is very unique and something that you're not going to see at a lot of other shows, or experience at a lot of other shows.
Unless you go to a powwow.
Unless you go to a powwow. But,
which happen everywhere, by the way.
they do. They do.
Well, and they're music festivals, right?
They are.
There's food and dancing and music and friends, and it's the same thing.
Well, and congratulations for winning the Cobalt Prize. Was it 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks.
2 years ago, Highway 17.
Yeah.
Now, did you write that song specifically for that contest? Or was it a song that you had written and you just decided to submit it to that contest?
Yeah, it was on our record, and then we submitted it.
Okay. And you're performing that song today, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about that song.
Well, at the time that we wrote it, I think I was feeling really like an internal conflict around how to manage the emotions that I was having about all of this information about violence against Indigenous women. And I think, and the walls that we were hitting in terms of being able to broaden the conversation. I was just feeling all of these really complicated things. And so I think that song was actually a way of addressing this, stuck place that I felt. And so it's about, rooting out the violence that we give shelter to without even knowing as a culture, but also as individuals, and being, just saying we're going to say no to this and make a stand and let things take a different path. And so, yeah, it's an interesting song to share with people, and I think it's been interesting to see the arc of how the conversation here in Canada has shifted. For me, I can feel it when I'm sharing that song, because when we first started playing it, it just felt really heavy and emotional. And now when we play it, I feel like people are much more receptive and want to go there more. So it's a pretty good feeling that and maybe we're not, but it feels like at this moment we're getting somewhere in that conversation.
Well, I think dialogue's opening up, and that was part of writing the song, was to create dialogue.
Right.
And I think that's part of maybe what we bring to our music is bringing topics that somebody might not necessarily talk about because it affects us. Like, what are your chances of, being violent, having violence on you as a brown woman, for instance? Right,
like I'm, as a Indigenous woman, 4 times more likely to be murdered or go missing than the rest of mainstream Canada, and that's kind of a staggering statistic. But I think the thing is that we're having these conversations forever in our circles and in our community. It's the broader conversation that hasn't been happening, and I think that that's the essential one to make that real shift.
Are you feeling that now at your shows, and some of the things do you feel like this conversation is broadening and it's starting to happen, and that there's a greater level of understanding around this?
I feel like there's a younger generation that's coming up that's a little bit more educated than the older generation
on these issues.
On these issues specifically. Yeah. And I feel that there's a openness, but of course I can't speak to that across the board because it's not like that. But there's these instances where we meet people and I'm like, oh, fantastic! Like, I love this. It makes me happy. Like, someone will say, oh, it's like there's over 1,200 missing and murdered Indigenous women. But, there's over 6,000 undocumented, and it's just that somebody's carrying that information and saying that that's non-Indigenous is a real step forward in terms of talking about these issues.
That they didn't gloss over that information, that they actually took the time to process that.
Exactly. Yeah, because it's a big thing. We are living in general in a misogynistic society. Even when we do workshops with kids on the res and stuff, like I talk to the young men and say, hey, it's like women are their creation and you have to respect that. And, we come from matrilineal societies, most of us as Indigenous people, pre-colonial, and, there were lots of teachings and understanding in our society where, you have to take care of the women in your group and in your community and your family. And I think we've lost a lot of that, with colonization and, the current society that we're living in. Because, if you look at it out there, it's like, women are always sort of on a back burner, right? And, I think now is such a great time to just have that equality come into effect. Not just because, I'm Indigenous or something like that, but just because it needs to be like that.
We need that balance. Being.
Exactly.
But yeah, so I agree, and I just think that, I just don't want people to go back to complacency. So while I feel like the conversation is happening in a broader way, we're actually just beginning. We're beginning that work, and I'm excited about that. I feel hopeful and all of these things, but we're not there yet. It's not like the work is done. So I think I think that it's really important for us to keep chipping away at it. And I think it's not, I was having a conversation about diversity the other day, and somebody was saying, okay, well, what's the problem, and let's just fix it. And I was like, well, no, it's not. It's not a problem to be fixed. It's actually this thing that needs to be a part of the ongoing conversation forever, right? And needs to be in our value system, and the way we talk to each other, and the way we hang out, and the way we make policy, and all of, just like all of that.
It's not a project where there's a beginning and an end.
Yeah, and you can go check.
Okay, we can fix this in 60 days.
Right, exactly, and it's like affirmative action. It's not a box you can check. That's not going to fix the issue. It's much deeper than that. So, I think we're
we
sort
can
of
fix that in 70 years. So.
Yeah, yeah. So, and I we nerd out over this stuff. Our parents are activists and educators and. Academics. Raven's dad's a lawyer. Both our mothers are professors, and And so, you know, that we were kind of born and bred on this, and this is
Right.
this is our small talk when we, you know, we hang out till 5 o'clock in the morning and and talk about how to make positive change. And so I think that we're stoked on that. And for us, music is sort of you know, for Raven's dad, it's constitutional law, and for us, it's music, it's songs.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I know a lot of the things that you talk about in your songs are uncomfortable, but I think it's important to make people feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, sometimes.
Oh, I feel that. I feel that it's okay to shake things up, because if we don't, we can become too complacent, and then when that happens, things become stagnant. You know, it's like a culture that's stagnant stops growing. I mean, it's even like with blues music. Like, blues has to change and expand, and you can't just stay in one particular Chicago type genre, for instance. It has to move from that, because, you know, Muddy Waters was doing it back in the 50s, you know? So, you know, we're coming from that time as like learning about that music, but we also have to push it forward. And, you know, like now you go in the States and there's like tons of hip hop that's like, you know, a part of blues, and there's jazz, and there's just like world music. Like, there's blues is a particular genre, but it's actually bigger than we actually realize. And I think that, you know, when you're talking to musicians, a lot of musicians would agree that, you know, the music always has to expand. Yeah, I mean, there are purists like in any kind of genre, but
which is important.
Yeah,
like, it's important
it's
to
a
uphold
tradition
those
too.
traditions, and then it's important to forge new, you know, strike new ground or whatever.
yeah, I mean, Coltrane wouldn't be Coltrane if he didn't push the envelope of like, you know, what improvisation was at that time, right? You know, and then he expanded it, and there's just so many people that came after him that brought those musical lessons and made new kinds of music. I think music is like that. It spawns, and it bursts open, and there's new avenues to go down, and there's new rhythms to explore, and new tonalities to make love to.
Well, I think the fact that Gary Clark Jr. performed on the Grammys was testament to that.
Yeah.
A blues artist
Yeah.
performing on the Grammys. Like, usually the blues genre gets pushed to the
Yeah.
part of the awards of the day before, you
Yeah.
know? So I thought that was a real interesting step forward, that we now have a blues artist that's kind of reached out into the mainstream again,
Yeah.
who's
And
doing something a bit different.
He's definitely one of those innovators who's really, you know, weaving, you know, all of these different genres, but he's standing very firmly in the blues, you know.
Yeah.
And I think it's just, he's not purposely putting soul music in there or
No.
anything. It's just, that's his vocabulary. So of course that's the way he's going to, you know, speak.
Fantastic. Well, I want to thank you guys so much for coming on the show.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen these guys live, please take the time to do it. Their website's at the bottom of the screen. You can check it out. There's lots of great videos and all sorts of other things you can check out about digging roots there. And I want to thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
And don't go away. The last song's coming up. Thanks for liking and sharing this video. And thank you so much for being part of the tribe.
Well, it's early in the day and I sure do feel alright. I was dark in the evening, but this morning I feel so light. I met trouble on Highway 17 late last night, and I left him in a box I locked up good and tight. Well, trouble won't be coming round to you no more. No, no. Trouble won't be coming round to you no more. Was a simple operation and a flawless execution. But trouble never knew what hit him till it was done, no, no. And I didn't need no rope and I didn't need no press easy, it was the perfect crime. It was fast and it was clean, elegant in design. Well, I looked him in the eye and he knew he crossed the line. 'Cause when trouble laid his hands on me, it would be his last time. I said no more trouble, trouble no more. No more trouble, trouble no more. No more trouble in my bed or at my door. No, no, no. The trouble won't be coming round here no more. Trouble won't be coming round here no more. No more trouble, no. No more. No more trouble, trouble no more. No more trouble, trouble no more. No more trouble in our beds or at our doors. No, no, no. The trouble won't be coming round here. No, trouble won't be coming round here. Trouble won't be coming around here no more. No, trouble won't be coming round here no more. No more trouble, no. No more.
If you want to hear more great Canadian blues acts, go to bluestribe.ca.